Hello, friends, and welcome to The How with Cal, the show where we answer questions you did not know you had. I'm your host, Cal, or Callie, and to avoid feeling more awkward than I already do, I just want to jump into the episode. Today, we're going to be talking about whales. To fully appreciate whales' adaptations and lifestyles, it's important to first understand that whales are classified into two principal groups: baleen and toothed. These foundational distinctions influence everything from how they feed to how they communicate. Baleen whales have plates made of keratin, the same protein in our hair and nails, in their mouths. These plates act like giant strainers. They gulp in water and food, then push the water out, trapping all the food behind. Famous baleen whales include blue whales, humpbacks, and right whales. Toothed whales, as the name suggests, have teeth. Think of sperm whales, orcas, and beluga whales. As a side fun fact, the Franciscana whale can have between 200 and 240 plus teeth. Meanwhile, the narwhal has just one, and it's the one you're thinking of, the famous unicorn horn. Now that we know who's who, let's tune in. From eerie songs that travel thousands of miles to rapid clicks used like sonar, whales have some of the most advanced communication styles in the animal kingdom. Most of us have heard whale calls echoing through the ocean, but here's the catch. Only 5 whale species are actually known to sing. The real divas of the ocean are the humpbacks. They're basically composing ballads that evolve over time. Joining them are the bowhead, blue, and fin whales, layering deep moans and melodic tones into the sea's soundscape. Orcas don't sing, but they do have their own communication style, with clicks, whistles, and pulsed calls. Each pod of orcas even has its own dialect. It's like regional accents, but way cooler. When sperm whales are not singing or whistling, they're using something called codas, C-O-D-A, which are rhythmic click sequences like Morse code. They're basically the ocean's secret agents. And if a whale does not feel like singing, clicking, or whistling, there's the classic fin slap, smacking the surface of the water like, hey, listen to me. It's very dramatic and very effective. Another method of communication is echolocation. It's basically sight through sound. It's especially useful for whales living in dark, murky, or icy waters, where honestly, sight isn't doing them much good anyway. Whales create clicks using phonic lips, a vibrating tissue inside their nasal passage. When these sound waves hit an object, the echo bounces back to the whale's lower jaw, then gets transmitted to the inner ear and brain. This tells them exactly where things are, including the size and shape. This is like having built-in sonar goggles without needing to look like Batman. Now moving on to one of the more wilder whale skills, diving, breathing, and sleeping. Whales are aquatic mammals, which means they breathe air and give birth to live young, just like humans. While we start wheezing after holding our breath for 30 seconds, whales are playing a whole different game. Thanks to muscles loaded with myoglobin, a special protein that stores oxygen, whales can hold their breath for insanely long periods. Sperm whales can dive over 9,800 feet deep, and Cuvier's beaked whales have the record, a dive lasting over 2 hours without breathing. So how do whales just not die? First, they can slow their heart rate to as low as 2 to 10 beats per minute. Then, of course, obviously, they can reroute their blood flow, making sure that only the essentials, their brain and their heart, stay oxygenated. Everything else just takes a nap. And another thing, whales cannot breathe automatically. Breathing is a conscious decision, even when they're sleeping. Part of their brain stays awake just to remember to come up for air. Imagine trying to sleep and having to actively think about every single breath. I would be cranky too. I don't think orcas are the villains, I think they're just exhausted. As someone who works in sleep medicine, I'm starting to understand. A few little side facts include toothed whales, like orcas, have one blowhole, while baleen whales, like humpbacks, have two. The dramatic blow you see when a whale surfaces, that's a full body exhale before pulling in fresh air. And whales are way more efficient at breathing than we are. They can exchange up to 90% of the air in their lungs with one breath. Humans, we do about 15%. Plus, when whales are diving in deeper waters, they can collapse their lungs safely, according to the National History Museum, preventing nitrogen from building up and causing decompression sickness, aka the bends. And when it comes to sleep, whales either float at the surface or log vertically in the water, taking half-brain naps. Just smooth, controlled collapses. And while their physical abilities are jaw-dropping, their minds might be even more impressive. Whales aren't just big, they're brainy, social, and deeply emotional. Let's take a closer look at just how smart these giants really are. Whales are actually really social. They often form close-knit family groups known as pods, like I mentioned earlier. These pods typically include anywhere between 2 to 20 individuals, usually led by a matriarch and composed of her offspring. Within these groups, whales build strong emotional bonds, spending time playing, learning, hunting, and just existing together. While some larger whale species tend to spend long stretches of time alone, they still come together during key moments like feeding, migrating, or breeding. Even more interesting, some pods don't stick to themselves, they interact with other pods too. Whales can show a remarkable range of emotional depth. They've been observed expressing behaviors that resemble compassion, empathy, and grief. Each whale is believed to have its own name, a unique sound that other whales use to identify them. Pods pass down traditions through generations, including cultural food preferences, parenting techniques, and even songs. Some populations hold what can only be described as singing competitions. In quieter moments, whales have been seen to pick up pebbles just to hold them for a little while before letting them go. There's no functional reason for it. Some researchers think it's simply because it brings them joy. One of the most striking displays of empathy comes from humpback whales. Often called the protectors of the ocean, they've been recorded intervening in orca attacks, not just to defend other whales, but also seals, sea lions, and porpoises. There doesn't appear to be a direct benefit to this behavior, which suggests it may come from a place of empathy or protective instinct. In cases of loss, grieving whales have been observed carrying the deceased friend with them for days, and sometimes even longer. When it comes to learning, whales rely heavily on observation and repetition. They learn by watching others and practicing the behavior until they understand them. This method of learning isn't just individual, it's collective. Whales actively pass knowledge on to others in their pod, creating a culture that extends far beyond instinct. In short, whale society is far more complex than it might seem from the surface. It's emotional, intelligent, and deeply connected. Speaking of impressive, imagine swimming thousands of miles across oceans every year. That's what many whales do during migration, and their navigational skills are nothing short of miraculous. Between the two whale types, baleen and toothed, it seems they both enjoy autumn and winter breeding waters in the tropics, with spring and summer feeding waters in the Arctic. Whalers recognize that most whales that forage in high latitudes migrate to the tropics for giving birth. Scientists never agreed on why. Because of their size, large whales should be able to successfully give birth in the frigid polar waters. Due to reduced feeding opportunities in the tropics, most whales fast during their months-long migrations. Whales and dolphins, like all mammals, regularly molt by shedding their outer skin cells. However, in the frigid waters of Antarctica, whales may suppress skin regeneration to conserve their body heat, leading to a buildup of diatoms, a yellow film of microscopic organisms. Researchers propose that migrations to warmer tropical waters allow whales to revive skin metabolism and molt efficiently, rather than solely to give birth. Satellite tracking of Antarctic killer whales revealed long, fast migrations north and back, unrelated to calving needs, as newborn calves were also seen in Antarctica. Scientists suggest that skin maintenance rather than reproduction could be the primary driver of these migrations, with calving in warm waters becoming a secondary adaptation due to reduced predator presence and a faster calf growth. Scientists found that all four types of whales that feed in the frigid Antarctic waters migrated as far as 7,000 miles, which is 1,100 kilometers round trip. Whales just like their skinned hair. Now, of course, we're going to talk about their mating rituals. Whale reproduction begins with highly specialized rituals, which can vary widely across their species. Male whales often use dramatic displays to attract a mate, such as breaching, fin slapping, or tail slapping, and in species capable of vocalization, like humpbacks, complex songs are used to court the females. Only a handful of whale species are known to sing, and these vocal displays can last for hours and travel far distances underwater. Once a female does become pregnant, this pregnancy can last anywhere from 10 to 18 months depending on that species. Whales typically give birth to one calf at a time, with twin births being incredibly rare, and even then, most twins do not survive for long. The interval between pregnancies also varies. Killer whales, for example, may only have 5 whales in their lifetime, while humpback whales can give birth to 14 or 15 calves. Some speculate this is due to menopause. Species even experience menopause. Many are affected by environmental conditions such as ocean temperature and food availability, which can influence the reproductive success. After birth, calves are nursed and closely cared for by their mothers, often remaining by their side for extended periods as they learn essential survival behaviors. But whales are not just travelers or parents, they're ecosystem engineers. Believe it or not, whales actually help regulate the entire ocean system and even fight climate change. Carbon. Okay, listen to me, don't check out. Carbon traps heat in the atmosphere, okay? All right, are we listening? This is what makes it one of the key contributors to global warming. But the ocean plays a massive role in balancing things out. Blue carbon captures and removes around 31% of all carbon dioxide emissions globally, and this process shows in a few main forms of the ocean. Carbon absorbed by ocean plants, algae, and plankton, carbon stored in the bodies of living animals, and carbon buried deep in sea sediments like sand, silt, gravel, even water and ice. And yes, whales contribute to all three of these systems. Now, we know that whales are some of the largest and longest living animals on Earth, which means they can store huge amounts of carbon in their bodies and store it for a long time. They eat carbon-rich prey and digest it efficiently, while exhaling very little carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. That's what makes them surprisingly good at carbon storage, better in some cases than trees. Now let's put that into perspective. One whale can capture an average of 33 tons of carbon dioxide over its lifetime. Compare that to a live oak tree, which is considered one of the most efficient carbon storing trees. It captures about 12 tons of carbon dioxide over 500 years. So when we talk about whales as environmental allies, we are not just being poetic. They're literally storing carbon, regulating ecosystems, and playing an active role in fighting climate change. And unfortunately, despite their crucial role in ocean health, whales have not always been protected. Commercial whaling pushed many species to the brink. Let's rewind a bit and look at how the world responded. Whaling has been a significant part of human history, shaping ecosystems, cultures, and marine ecosystems around the world. For centuries, countries like the United States, Norway, Japan, Russia, and the Netherlands engaged in commercial whaling, driven by demand for whale oil used in lamps and industrial machinery, baleen for product like corsets and umbrella ribs, whale meat for food, and ambergris, a rare substance used in perfumes and medicines. This large-scale hunting, enabled by advanced technologies such as harpoons and factory ships, allowed whalers to kill vast numbers of whales, especially large species like blue whales, fin whales, humpbacks, and sperm whales. The result was devastating, as many whale populations plummeted, with some pushed close to extinction. In contrast, indigenous communities such as the Inuit, Chukchi, and Maka practice whaling sustainably for thousands of years. Their approach was rooted in traditional ecological knowledge, cultural respect, and subsistence needs, taking only what was necessary and honoring the whales through rituals and community cooperation. This relationship emphasized balance with nature rather than profit. As whale populations declined dramatically, international efforts emerged to regulate whaling. The International Convention for the Regulation of Whaling, the ICRW, was established in 1946. Followed by the U.S. Whaling Convention Act of 1949, aiming to manage and protect whale stocks. Despite these efforts, declines continued until the International Whaling Commission, the IWC, imposed a moratorium on commercial whaling in 1986, halting most large-scale hunts to allow populations to recover. The moratorium still permits limited exceptions. Indigenous groups can conduct subsistence whaling under strict quotas, and some countries continue whaling for scientific research, an often controversial practice. In the United States, agencies like the NOAA and the Marine Mammal Protection Act enforce anti-whaling laws, balancing whale conservation with protection of indigenous hunting rights. Whales play crucial roles in nutrient cycling and supporting ocean food webs. Their decline disrupted these processing, influencing fish stocks, plankton blooms, and overall ocean health. Today, while whaling is far more regulated and limited than in the past, species historically targeted, such as blue, fin, and humpback whales, remain under close conservation watch. Their recovery is ongoing but slow, underscoring the need for continued protection. Understanding the history and impacts of whaling not only reveals the cultural significance of these majestic creatures, but also highlights the urgent importance for sustainable management to preserve marine ecosystems for generations to come. And even today, we're still seeing the long-term effects of human and predator impact. Case in point, Port and Starboard. You might have heard about them, two killer whales whose unique but deadly behavior is changing ecosystems today. Off the coast of South Africa, two killer whales named Port and Starboard have captured the attention of scientists and ocean enthusiasts alike. Named for the direction of their dorsal fins lean, port to the left and starboard to the right, these two adult males have been traveling and hunting together since at least 2015. But it's not just their long-standing partnership that makes them so remarkable, it's their eerie and high specialized hunting behavior. Port and Starboard are known for targeting sharks, especially broad-nosed seven-gill sharks and great whites, an unusual choice even for killer whales. What's more is they hunt with surgical precision, flipping the sharks upside down to paralyze them and then making a single clean incision just behind the pectoral fins to extract only the liver. It's a technique that some shark carcasses have washed ashore with a single gaping wound and little else disturb. Marine biologists have been studying the duo through aerial surveys, photo ID, and GPS tracking, and even by examining the shark remains that they leave behind. Researchers are also analyzing acoustic recordings to determine whether port and starboard coordinate with vocalizations, and drone footage has helped them shed light on their behavior from above. Despite these efforts, much about the pair remains a mystery: where they came from, how they developed such targeted hunting, and why their bond has lasted so long. Their impact, however, is unmistakable. In places like False Bay and Guns Bay, once hotspots for great white sharks, sightings have dropped dramatically following visits from the pair. Scientists believe their presence has triggered a displacement effect, following sharks to flee to new territories. While apex predators like great whites disappear, the effects ripple down the entire food chain. Seal populations surge, fish stocks shift, and the balance of the ecosystem is thrown off. This kind of top-down ecological influence is called a trophic cascade, and it's happening in real time. Port and Starboard aren't just curious case studies, they're a powerful reminder of how individual animals can reshape entire ecosystems, especially in a world where climate change and human activity are already pushing marine life to adapt in surprising ways. It's no wonder whales have inspired myths for centuries. Their size, mystery, and presence in the deep have made them perfect characters for ancient legends and sea stories. Whales have surfaced in the myths and legends of cultures around the world, often embodying both awe and reverence. Along the Pacific North Coast of North America, indigenous people tell powerful stories of whales, not just as animals, but as spiritual forces. One of the most striking is the story of the thunderbird and the whale. In this tale, the mighty thunderbird, a spiritual bird so large its wings create thunder, dives from the sky to snatch a whale from the ocean and defeat its young. But the whale fights back with such intensity that the battle between these two titanic beings shakes the earth itself, reshaping the mountains, valleys, and coastlines. It's a story that explains not only the land's dramatic geography, but the raw, living power of nature. In other traditions, whales are seen as protectors and guides. In Maori mythology, they are considered sacred treasures of the sea. One of the most beloved stories is that of Paikea. A man survived a murderous plot by riding to safety on the back of a whale. That whale carried him across the sea to what is now New Zealand. Today, Paikea is honored as a cultural hero, and whales are seen as symbols of resilience, guidance, and deep ancestral connection. But of course, not all whale stories are peaceful. In Norse mythology, there's a terrifying sea creature known as Hafgapa, a whale so massive it can be mistaken for an island. Sailors believed it lived beneath the waves, raising to rise up and devour entire ships whole. It's a stark contrast to stories of whales as wise or benevolent, instead portraying the whale as a force of chaos from the depths. Whether they are sacred guides, mythical battlegrounds, or sea monsters cloaked in fog, whales have always represented something larger than life, linking us to the mysteries of the sea, the power of nature, and the stories we tell to make sense of it all. One of the most famous stories, of course, is Jonah and the whale. But here's the question: could it really happen? I'm a little biased, so I want to explore the science behind the story. I'm not here to debate theology, alright, it's whale time only right now. The story of Jonah and the great fish is one of the Bible's most unforgettable and mysterious tales. In the book of Jonah, the prophet flees God's command only to be swallowed by a great fish and spend 3 days and nights inside it. Now, this phrase, often taken literally, is actually a Hebrew idiom, meaning parts of 3 days, not necessarily a full 72 hours, which already makes the story slightly more plausible. But could a man really survive inside of a fish? And what kind of creature are we even talking about? The original Hebrew words don't specify a whale as we understand it today. Rather, what was said actually means big fish or sea monster. In ancient times, any large marine animal could have earned this label, from giant sharks to enormous whales. Now let's consider the sperm whale, one of the few creatures capable of swallowing a human whole. These giants can grow over 70 feet long, with an esophagus roughly 20 inches wide enough for a person to slip down without being crushed. Yet inside their massive stomachs, the environment is harsh, of course. Whales have multiple chambered stomachs, much like cows, where food is crushed and digested in stages. If Jonah found himself in the first chamber, a sac-like extension from the esophagus, he might have avoided immediate digestion, but crushing or suffocation would still be a grave threat. Unlike lungs, these chambers don't supply oxygen, so breathing would be nearly impossible without the whale surfacing to gulp air regularly or divine intervention. The story takes on an almost cinematic quality when you hear about James Bartley, a sailor aboard the Star of the East in 1891. The sailor who, according to legend, was swallowed alive by a whale and survived. The story goes Bartley was part of a whaling crew aboard the Star of the East. During a hunt, a sperm whale struck back, smashing into the boats and throwing men overboard, with Bartley one of the missing. Later, the crew managed to catch and kill the whale. While cutting it open, they allegedly found Bartley curled up inside the stomach, unconscious but alive. And he wasn't just alive. According to the tale, he was blinded by the stomach acids, badly bleached, but recovered within weeks. He supposedly lived another 18 years and was even buried with a gravestone that called him the modern Jonah. It sounds a little too good to be true because it probably is. Historians and scientists have debunked many parts of the story. There are no official records of a James Bartley on the Star of the East. The ship was real, but there was no documented whale encounter or recovery like this. And biologically, it's extremely unlikely a human could even survive inside of a whale's stomach. There's no air supply, and the stomach acids would cause much more severe damage. But still, the story stuck. It's been retold in newspapers, books, and even sermons, often framed as proof of the biblical Jonah story. Was this a tall tale, a misremembered tragedy, or is there any chance it could be true? The answer will always remain a mystery, but the story challenges us to consider the power of faith, the limits of science, and the awe-inspiring creatures that continue to roam the ocean. Now, last but not least, a quiz. Just 3 questions to see if you were actually listening to me. Definitely let me know how many you got correct. Question 1. Which species of whale is known for having the loudest call in the animal kingdom? I have A. Orca, B. Blue whale, C. Humpback whale, and D. Beluga whale. The answer is B. They are blue whales. Blue whales are actually the loudest animals on Earth, with vocalizations reaching 188 decibels. Now, next question. What do killer whales, aka orcas, primarily eat in the wild? We went over this, alright? A is plankton, B is seals, fish, and sometimes whales. C is seaweed and algae. D is jellyfish. The answer is B, seals, fish, and sometimes whales. We know this from Port and Starboard, of course. Last question is, how do whales breathe? A, through gills like fish, B, through their mouths, C, through blowholes, and D, through their fins. The answer is C, through blowholes. And of course, we know that toothed whales have 1 blowhole and baleen whales have 2. Thank you very much for listening. Join me next episode as we plunge into the glowing depths of bioluminescence, uncovering the science, mysteries, and the magic behind nature's own light show. Because in a world full of darkness, how do these living lights enchant, guide, and warn us all? I would love to hear your favorite part of today's episode, something you found interesting, or any topics you want me to explore in the future. You can find the podcast at The How with Cal on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram.